Miss Sullivan, I'm not calling about your brother's tuition.
Then why are you calling?
The project that won Ethan his fellowship as the author.
That's impossible. He never had permission.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paige Sullivan. I am 36 years old, and the night my mother announced that I would pay $120,000 for my brother's MBA, I thought money was the worst thing my family wanted to take from me. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, a professor called and told me that my brother had won a prestigious fellowship with a business plan that listed me as its original author. By midnight, I had proof that he had stolen 4 years of my work. But the deepest betrayal was not finding my name hidden inside his file. It was discovering who in my family had helped him erase it. Before I tell you how that single phone call destroyed my brother's perfect story, please tell me where you are listening from. What city or country are you in? And what time is it there? Leave a comment below, because I truly want to know how far my story has traveled. The trouble began at a private dining room in a steakhouse in Columbus, Ohio. My parents had invited about 20 relatives and family friends to celebrate my younger brother, Ethan. At 29, he had finally been admitted to the Westbridge School of Management, a respected graduate business school. My mother, Diane, had decorated the room with navy and gold balloons. A sheet cake near the window said, "Congratulations." Future CEO, Ethan's girlfriend, Claire, had arranged printed menace with his name at the top. Even my father, Mark, who rarely gave speeches, had prepared several pages of notes. I was proud of Ethan when I arrived. I honestly was. He had drifted between jobs for most of his 20s, always certain that success was one opportunity away. I hoped the MBA might give him structure. I even brought him an expensive leather portfolio with his initials embossed on the cover. Dinner went smoothly until dessert. Then Mom tapped a spoon against her glass and stood. She praised Ethan's intelligence, his courage, and his bright future. She announced that he had received a $30,000 venture fellowship. Everyone applauded. Then she smiled at me and added, "And Paige will cover the remaining tuition and residency costs. It is about $120,000, but she can afford it. She doesn't have children." She said it as if my life had left an unused line in the family budget. The room filled with approving murmurs. One aunt said I was a wonderful sister. Dad lowered his eyes, but he did not look surprised. Claire squeezed Ethan's hand. Ethan simply watched me with the calm expression of someone waiting for a payment he had already spent. I placed my napkin beside my plate. "No," I said. At first, nobody moved. Then Mom gave a nervous laugh and told everyone I was joking. "I'm not joking," I said. "No one asked me. I will not pay $120,000 for Ethan's degree." Ethan's face changed immediately. "Are you really going to humiliate me over money?" he asked. His choice of words told me everything. He did not think the announcement had humiliated me. He believed my refusal had humiliated him. I reminded him that I had already paid 2 months of his rent after he quit a sales job 6 weeks after starting it. I had covered the balance on his car when it was almost repossessed. I had given him $3,000 for a professional certification course, only to learn that he used most of it for a trip with Claire. He had repaid $200 in total. Mom accused me of keeping score. Dad said the restaurant was not the place to discuss private family matters, even though they had made my bank account the subject of a public toast. I stood, collected my coat, and told Ethan I hoped he succeeded. I also told him that his success would have to be built with his own work and his own financial plan. As I walked out, he held my gaze as though I had stolen something from him. The next morning, I received a message from Ethan. "You made me look like a beggar in front of Claire." There was no apology. He did not say he felt hurt. He complained that I had damaged the image he had created. An hour later, he tagged me in a social media post announcing his admission to Westbridge. Under a photograph of himself holding the school folder, he wrote, "Grateful for the family members who understand that belief requires sacrifice." Because my name was attached, friends began congratulating both of us. Anyone reading the post would assume I had agreed to sponsor him. I removed the tag and said nothing publicly. That evening, Mom called. She did not say hello. "You have the money," she said. "Having money does not mean I owe it to Ethan." "You don't have children, Paige. What exactly are you saving it for?" That question hurt more than I wanted her to know. I owned a small operations consulting company. I had spent 12 years building it from a desk in my apartment into a stable firm with 2 full-time employees and several contractors. I paid my own insurance, funded my retirement, and kept 6 months of payroll in reserve because other people depended on me. No one had ever caught me when I fell. That was why I had learned to plan carefully. But in my family, being responsible did not make my needs important. It made my resources easier to claim. Because I was single and had no children, they treated every dollar I saved as money waiting for a more deserving life. 2 days later, an automated email arrived at my business address. Westbridge thanked me for being listed as Ethan's potential family sponsor and asked me to complete a financial support form. My stomach tightened. The form did not legally require me to pay, but it proved that Ethan had entered my information before the celebration. The dinner had not been a request. It had been a pressure campaign designed to make a decision for me in public. I contacted the finance office immediately. I removed my name and requested written confirmation that no loan guarantee, tuition agreement, or sponsorship could be created in my name. Then I forwarded that confirmation to Ethan and my parents. No one replied. Instead, Dad canceled our usual Sunday call. My Aunt Mara sent a long message saying that success meant nothing if I refused to lift the next person. Claire left a voicemail warning that my decision might send Ethan into a very dark emotional place. They were trying to make me responsible for whatever he chose to do next. For the first time, I saw the pattern clearly. I had always been told to be reasonable because Ethan was sensitive. I was expected to absorb insults because he was insecure, cover emergencies because my parents were tired, and forgive broken promises because accountability might discourage him. A week passed. Then Ethan emailed me with the subject line, "Last chance." He attached Westbridge's payment schedule and highlighted the first due date in yellow. Under it, he wrote, "If I lose this opportunity, everyone will know why I did not answer." 3 days later, my assistant told me that a professor from Westbridge was waiting on line 1. The professor introduced himself as Adrian Cole, director of the school's venture lab. His voice was polite but unusually careful. "M. Sullivan," he said. "I am not calling about your brother's tuition. I am calling about the project used to award his venture fellowship. The original file identifies you as the author." My hand tightened around the phone. He explained that Ethan's project was called Nightbridge. It proposed a network of evening childcare centers for nurses, medical assistants, warehouse workers, and other parents whose shifts ended after ordinary daycare centers closed. The plan included detailed staffing ratios, licensing assumptions, site requirements, customer interviews, pricing levels, renovation budgets, and a 5-year financial model. Ethan had presented it as 10 months of independent research. The faculty panel ranked it first in his group and awarded him the fellowship. I knew the plan before Professor Cole finished describing it. 4 years earlier, I had created a concept called Second Shift. The idea began with one of my clients, an urgent care company that could not retain medical assistants with young children. Daycare centers closed before evening shifts ended. Parents were missing work, changing careers, or leaving healthcare entirely. I interviewed shift workers. I studied state licensing rules. I mapped staffing schedules and searched for buildings that could be converted safely. I designed a model for childcare centers that would stay open until midnight. For almost a year, I worked on Second Shift after finishing my paid client work. Many nights I stayed awake until 2 in the morning. I visited 14 possible locations. I spoke with hospital benefits managers and childcare licensing consultants. I built and rebuilt the financial model dozens of times. Then a major investor withdrew during final discussions. Without enough capital, I placed the project in my archive. I had never published it. I had never given it to Ethan. Professor Cole asked whether Ethan had worked for my company, helped with the research, received my permission, or collaborated with me. I answered no 4 times. He told me the school first suspected a harmless template problem, but the document properties listed Paige Sullivan as the author and named my consulting firm as the company. The creation date was 4 years old. Hidden comments still used the title Second Shift. The linked spreadsheet had the same history. Ethan had changed the name, colors, and introduction. He had not removed the life of the document. An accounting professor had noticed that some labor assumptions were several years old. When he followed a hidden source link, it led to an archived page on my company's website. That discovery triggered a formal review. Because Ethan had certified that all writing and research were original, the matter threatened his fellowship, his final grade, and his place in the program, my first emotion was not satisfaction, it was humiliation. Strangers had studied work I considered unfinished and believed my brother had created it. He had stood in front of professors, accepted their praise, and built a professional identity out of nights I had spent working alone. I asked Professor Cole to protect information related to my former clients. He promised that the evidence would remain inside the school's review system. I agreed to provide only what was necessary to establish authorship. Before ending the call, he advised me not to contact Ethan until the school sent him formal notice. The moment I put down the phone, Ethan called. I let it ring. He called again. Then Mom sent a message in capital letters. PCQPHEPO. Ethan called 7 times in 11 minutes, but he never left a voicemail. That silence told me he was not calling to ask what the professor had discovered. He already knew. I locked my office door and opened the archive on my company's server. The access history showed that a copy of Second Shift had been exported 8 months earlier. During the weekend, Ethan borrowed my old laptop. His own computer had failed while he was completing MBA applications. I had created a temporary account for him and left the laptop at our parents' house. When he returned it, he joked that I had saved his future. Now I understood what he meant. I opened my original plan. Next to the financial model was a note I had written after the investor withdrew. Do not confuse delay with failure. I had forgotten that sentence. Ethan had not. In the public summary of his fellowship project, he used it as his final line. My fear became focus. I saved the access records and called Rebecca Shaw, the technology attorney who advised my company. She told me to preserve every file and avoid arguing by phone. Facts lose their shape inside families, she said. Keep everything in writing. Together, we focused on 3 questions. Who created the plan? Who, if anyone, gave Ethan permission to use it? And did he knowingly hide its origin to receive academic credit? The first answer was easy. My archive contained 86 dated revisions. It showed me creating the staffing model, writing the risk analysis, adding interview notes, and changing the site criteria. Every important decision had a history that began years before Ethan entered business school. The second answer hurt far more. Months earlier, Ethan had emailed me that his entrepreneurship class required a strong venture concept. He asked me to give him something impressive enough to win the panel. I had offered to review his outline and teach him how to build a financial model. I clearly told him I would not choose his idea, write his plan, or allow him to submit work created for one of my clients. He never replied. 2 days later, Mom forwarded him a PDF of Second Shift that I had once sent my parents while I was seeking the original investment. Her message said, "Use this." Paige abandoned it, and she has plenty of other ideas. Change the name so she doesn't get territorial. Bon Ethan replied, "What if she recognizes the numbers?" 11 minutes later, Dad answered, "She will never see the final project unless someone creates a problem." I read that exchange until my screen dimmed. Mom knew how hard I had worked. She had listened to me cry after the investor withdrew. Yet in her mind, my disappointment did not prove the work mattered to me. It made the work available for Ethan. Dad was not unaware. He had counted on my absence. I remember the Saturday I had set aside to help Ethan build his own project. I cleared my calendar, prepared a blank forecasting template, and bought the coffee he liked. He never arrived. Mom later said he felt judged by the idea of being taught by his older sister. Now I understood. Ethan had not rejected my help. He had rejected the part where help required effort. Mom protected him from that discomfort by giving him the finished answer. The third question was answered by an instruction sheet Ethan had sent to a freelance editor. "Keep the unit economics," he wrote. "Say I interviewed 412 local parents. We do not have time for real interviews, so create percentages that support demand. Remove Paige's company name and make the origin impossible to trace." He had not merely borrowed a family idea. He had deliberately hidden the source and fabricated research. I prepared a concise statement for Westbridge. I included the original version history, the access record, my refusal, Mom's email, Dad's response, and Ethan's instructions to the freelancer. I did not include their insults, the tuition demand, or the unpaid debts. The facts were strong enough without decoration. Before submitting the statement, I stared at the authorization box for nearly 10 minutes. One click could change Ethan's life. Then I reminded myself that the change began when he uploaded stolen work, not when I documented what he had done. I signed my name and sent the evidence. That evening, Westbridge notified Ethan of an authorship review and froze the fellowship money. He called me from 4 different numbers. Mom sent, pick up the phone, 6 more times. Dad wrote, we need to agree on a family version before outsiders decide what happened. I responded once by email. I will not discuss evidence by phone. Preserve all files and messages. I will attend any formal meeting arranged by Westbridge. Mom replied immediately. Formal meeting. He is your brother. This is not a criminal case. That was true. It was not a criminal case, but it was also no longer a private disagreement. Ethan had accepted money, academic credit, and professional recognition for work he did not create. Westbridge scheduled an authorship conference for the following Tuesday. Ethan described Knightbridge as a concept developed by the whole family. He brought Mom and Dad as witnesses. Claire came as his support person. Aunt Mara asked to attend because she believed I was using the school to punish Ethan for the tuition argument. The integrity officer allowed them in after everyone signed a confidentiality agreement. The night before the meeting, I wrote 2 sentences on an index card. Answer only what you know. Do not rescue anyone from silence. I placed it in my coat pocket. Ethan's greatest advantage had never been evidence. It was our family's instinct to fill every uncomfortable pause with an excuse for him. Mom left me a voicemail saying, you do not have to lie. Just do not be so exact. Ethan sent a message claiming the school did not care who had typed the first version. He offered to list me as an advisor and give me a role in Knightbridge after investors became involved. He was offering me a minor position in a company built from my stolen work. I wanted to call him and scream. Instead, I read the email where I had offered to teach him. I remembered why I had drawn the boundary. I wanted him to create something he could honestly stand behind. By stealing my plan, he had turned that boundary into evidence against himself. On Tuesday morning, I entered the Westbridge administration building carrying one thin folder. Ethan arrived with a laptop, a briefcase, both parents, Claire and Aunt Mara. When he saw I had no computer, he smiled. He confused the absence of a performance with the absence of proof. Professor Cole sat at one end of the conference table. Beside him was Dr. Nia Patel, Westbridge's academic integrity officer. Dr. Patel explained that the meeting was for fact-finding, not a final decision. Then she warned everyone that deleting or altering records after formal notice could become a separate violation. Mom held Ethan's hand. Claire leaned against his shoulder. Aunt Mara sat beside me but did not look in my direction. Professor Cole opened the original file on a large screen. Mr. Sullivan, he asked, why does the earliest version of your final project identify Paige Sullivan as the author? Ethan said my laptop had been a shared family computer, so my name appeared automatically. Professor Cole asked why the file had been created 4 years before Ethan borrowed the laptop. Ethan said we had discussed the concept as a family for years and that I had made an early shell based on his vision. Please describe your contribution, Professor Cole said. Ethan glanced at Mom. He said we had talked several times about working parents needing childcare. What did you contribute to the operating model? The vision, Ethan answered. Professor Cole began asking technical questions. Why did the staffing formula use a blended ratio when state requirements changed according to a child's age? Why were the proposed locations limited to former pharmacies of a certain size? What made smaller storefronts more expensive to convert? Why did the pricing model include a special discount for hospital employees on rotating night shifts? Ethan spoke in general language about industry standards and affordable property. He could not explain a single number. Former pharmacies often had consultation rooms, plumbing, ventilation, parking, and layouts that reduced renovation costs. I had personally measured 14 locations. The staffing model balanced legal ratios across different age groups. The hospital discount was developed because my original client's highest employee turnover happened on rotating night shifts. Every answer led back to a decision I had researched and documented years before Ethan entered Westbridge. Ethan interrupted and said, of course she knows the details. I consulted her. Patel asked him to show proof of that consultation. Ethan opened his laptop. Before he could speak, a red notification appeared on Dr. Patel's screen. Stop, she said. The room became completely still. The school's preserved project folder had recorded an attempted deletion from Ethan's account. He claimed he had clicked the wrong link. Dr. Patel reminded him that she had warned everyone only minutes earlier. Professor Cole no longer sounded curious. He sounded disappointed. "You did not open a consultation note," he said. "You attempted to remove the source archive." Mom leaned forward and insisted that Ethan was nervous and being treated like a dangerous person. Professor Cole looked directly at her. "I am treating him like a graduate student who is responsible for his own actions." My parents had always explained Ethan through stress, potential sensitivity, and bad timing. The professor asked only what he had done. I handed my folder to Dr. Patel. She read the version sequence, allowed original creation under my company account, 86 revisions. The export through Ethan's temporary login, removal of my company details, renaming of the project, and submission to Westbridge. Ethan argued that access proved permission. Dr. Patel pointed out that the file had been copied through a temporary laptop account. There was no transfer message, written license, invitation, or record of collaboration. Professor Cole asked why Ethan had not cited me. "Because it was family work," Ethan said. "Families do not invoice one another for ideas." Patel then read my email offering to teach him, along with my clear refusal to let him submit my work. After that, she read Mom's message. "Use this." Paige abandoned it. "Change the name so she doesn't get territorial." Then she read Dad's response. "She will never see the final project unless someone creates a problem." Hearing those words spoken in that quiet room felt worse than discovering them alone. Mom had not misunderstood my boundary. She had planned around it. Dad had not been passively unaware. He had expected me never to find out. I pressed the index card inside my pocket and allowed their silence to remain theirs. Aunt Mara slowly turned toward my parents. "You told the family Ethan created this himself," she said. Dad called it a misunderstanding. "No," Mara answered. "You asked us to pressure Paige and you knew why she was refusing." She moved her chair closer to mine. It was a small movement, but it was the first time a relative had crossed the room in my direction. Claire asked Ethan whether he had really interviewed 4 WUMF parents. She had helped him rehearse his presentation and believed the stories he told about those interviews. Ethan said the online platform had deleted the raw responses. I handed Dr. Patel the freelancer instructions. She read Ethan's request to invent percentages, preserve my economics, remove my company name, and hide the source. Claire stared at him. "Was any part of the story true?" she asked. Ethan did not answer her. He looked at me. "You could not stand that I finally had something," he said. "You already have a company, money, and your perfect independent life. I had one chance to be taken seriously, and you needed everyone to know the idea began with you." There it was. He believed my work became less mine because I had other achievements. He believed his need gave him ownership. Mom asked me to declare the concept family property. Dad begged the school not to destroy Ethan's future over a file. Professor Cole said, "Academic integrity is not a family negotiation." He summarized the facts. Ethan had submitted another person's work, hidden its origin, fabricated research, certified it as original, and attempted to delete evidence during the review. Claire stood and collected her bag. Ethan reached toward her, but she stepped away. "You used Paige's work to win the fellowship?" she said. "Then you used my belief in you to sell the lie." She left without raising her voice. The door had barely closed when Ethan called her dramatic. He accused the fellowship committee of being elitist. He accused me of manipulating everyone because I knew how to sound professional. Then he demanded compensation for the months he claimed to have spent improving my abandoned plan. Even after being exposed, he tried to transform the theft into labor I owed him for. Professor Cole asked whether changing the title and inventing respondents were the improvements he meant. Ethan had no answer. He pushed his chair back so hard that it struck the wall. He said I had ruined his relationship and threatened to tell the public that Westbridge had humiliated him. Dr. Patel ended the meeting. The fellowship would remain frozen. The project would remain ungraded. Ethan's system access would be restricted, and his attempted deletion would be referred to a disciplinary panel. As I stood, Mom whispered that I could still fix everything. I looked at Ethan and then at my parents. "I did not come here to ruin his future," I said. "I came because all of you tried to build his future out of work you stole from mine. No one followed me when I left." In the elevator, I opened my fist and saw that the edge of the index card had pressed red lines into my palm. I did not feel victorious. I felt the strange relief of leaving a room without carrying everyone else's version of what had happened. The official decision arrived 19 days later. Westbridge found Ethan responsible for plagiarism, fabrication of research, scholarship misrepresentation, and interference with an academic review. His fellowship was canceled. His final project failed, and he was dismissed from the MBA program. He could apply for readmission after 3 years, but every future application would require disclosure of the decision. The consequences spread quickly. Ethan lost his graduate housing. A consulting company withdrew an internship that required good academic standing. The words Westbridge MBA candidate disappeared from his professional profile. Claire ended their relationship. My parents lost a non-refundable housing deposit and had to repay fellowship money that had already been released. Mom blamed the school, Professor Cole, the freelancer, and me. She blamed everyone except the person who had signed the originality statement. For weeks, she called relatives before I could speak to them. She described Ethan as a gifted student destroyed by a technical mistake. But the school's findings were specific. Her story weakened whenever someone asked why a technical mistake required fictional interviews and an attempted deletion. Aunt Mara apologized to me. She admitted it had been easier to believe I was selfish than to imagine the celebration had been organized to pressure me. 2 cousins stopped defending my parents after they saw the emails. Other relatives insisted I should have handled university fraud privately because Ethan shared my last name. Ethan called every day until I blocked him. Then he emailed. He offered to admit to a citation error if I declared second shift a family project. He wanted to trade theft and fabricated evidence for a formatting mistake. His final call came from Dad's phone. Dad had recently undergone a medical test, so I answered because I feared something was wrong. Ethan spoke before I could say hello. "Please," he said. "Tell them you gave me the plan. You do not have to say when. If you confirm permission, they may reduce everything to a citation violation. I will repay you. I will work for you for free. I will sign anything." I asked whether he would also tell the school that the 4012 interviews never happened. He became silent. Then he said, "That part can be explained." Even at his lowest point, he was not asking how to tell the truth. He was asking which lie I was willing to carry for him. Part of me wanted to give him a plan. I wanted to tell him to admit everything without bargaining, apologize to the honest students he had defeated for the fellowship, repay what he could, and begin again somewhere else. But that would have made accountability another project I designed for him. If Ethan was going to change, the first honest step had to be his own. Mom took the phone and said families survive by protecting one another. She listed everything Ethan had lost: Claire, his apartment, the internship, the degree, and 3 years of his career. "Hasn't he paid enough?" she asked. I told her that consequences were not a bill I controlled. I would not submit a false statement, fund an appeal, or discuss the matter by phone. Then I ended the call and blocked Dad's number until he emailed me directly about his medical results. The silence that followed was not triumphant. I grieved the parents I thought I had. I grieved the brother I had spent years expecting to become responsible. But grief was cleaner than confusion. Ethan appealed. He called second shift abandoned family property and claimed the attempted deletion was accidental. The panel upheld every finding. He moved back into our parents' house and accepted a temporary customer service job at an insurance company. Mom described him as being between programs, as if another impressive future were already waiting. Meanwhile, I reopened the original second shift folder. I did not return to it because Ethan had made the idea valuable. I returned because defending it reminded me why I had created it. I contacted the urgent care executive whose employee problem had inspired my research. She told me that staffing shortages had become worse. She introduced me to a hospital network that was actively searching for evening childcare options. For the first time in 4 years, second shift was no longer an archived disappointment. It was mine again, and I could decide what happened next. I hired an independent research team. I disclosed the entire history to my attorney. We replaced every old assumption with current evidence. We conducted real interviews with nurses, warehouse employees, emergency workers, and other parents with late shifts. Reclaiming the plan did not erase Ethan's theft. It stopped his theft from becoming the final chapter of my work. 6 months later, Second Shift opened its first pilot center inside a renovated pharmacy near 2 hospitals. We began with 42 licensed spaces, evening meals, secure transportation partnerships, and operating hours based on real hospital schedules. Most spaces were reserved before opening day. A second location entered planning the following month. At the opening, One of my employees asked whether I wanted a photograph beside the original business plan. I said no. The plan was not sacred because my name appeared in its metadata. It mattered because real people could question it, test it, and improve it with permission. Ownership did not mean hiding an idea forever. It meant having the right to decide when and how it was shared. One evening, I watched a nurse enter the center after a 12-hour shift. Her little daughter was asleep, wrapped in a yellow blanket. The nurse lifted her gently, thanked our staff, and carried her into the parking lot. That quiet moment meant more to me than any fellowship announcement. It belonged to the years of research, the failed investment, the honest rebuild, and the people who trusted us. It did not belong to the false family story Ethan had tried to write over mine. Through Aunt Mara, I heard that Mom had started criticizing Ethan for not trying hard enough. The irony did not satisfy me. It showed me that her protection had never been the kind of love she claimed it was. It lasted only while someone else could absorb the cost. When the money, excuses, and rescue plans disappeared, Ethan had to live beside the expectations our parents had helped him avoid. He could still rebuild his life. Dismissal from a university was serious, but it was not a life sentence. He could work, repay his debts, study honestly, and apply again when he became eligible. What I could not do was manufacture that growth for him. Saving Ethan from every consequence had never helped him move forward. It had only taught him to search for the next person willing to stand between him and reality. Several months later, Dad asked to meet me alone. He apologized for his email and admitted that he knew Ethan had copied something, although he claimed he did not understand how much. I told him the amount was not the point. He knew enough to hope I would never see it. We did not repair our relationship in one conversation. I stopped pretending an apology erased a choice, and he stopped asking me to act as if nothing had happened. Strangely, that became the most honest relationship we had ever had. Mom never apologized. On my birthday, she sent a card saying she hoped I would choose family again. I did not argue. I sent one short note. I chose not to lie. The distance that followed was your choice. Ethan sent one final email after a local business journal published photographs of the second shift opening. "So you got everything anyway," he wrote. That sentence confirmed that he still believed success was a limited object I had kept away from him. He could not see the difference between building something and taking it. He could not see the difference between losing an opportunity through dishonesty and being denied an opportunity by someone else. I did not reply. Before I finish, here is the heart of my story. My family publicly demanded that I pay $120,000 for my brother's MBA because I was single, financially stable, and had no children. When I refused, they called me selfish. Then I discovered that Ethan had already won a fellowship by stealing my unfinished business plan, changing its name, and inventing customer research. My mother gave him the file. My father helped hide it. When Westbridge investigated, they pressured me to lie. I chose evidence over their family version. Ethan lost his fellowship and was dismissed while I reclaimed my work and turned second shift into a real childcare center for working parents. And this is what the experience taught me. Love does not require financing another adult's choices. Loyalty does not require silence when someone steals your labor, your identity, or your future. Forgiveness is not permission to repeat the same harm. You can care about a person and still refuse to become the place where all their consequences disappear. For years, I believed being the responsible one meant carrying more. Now I understand that responsibility also means knowing what is not yours to carry. I did not refuse to fund Ethan because I wanted him to fail. I refused because he needed to build a life that belonged to him. When he later asked me to save his MBA, he was not asking for a second chance. He was asking me to pay for a plan he had stolen and then lie about who created it. My answer was no both times. If you were in my position, would you stay silent to keep your family close, or would you tell the truth even if the truth cost you that relationship? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching and listening until the end. This story is fictional and created for dramatic entertainment and thoughtful reflection. If it connected with you, please like the video and leave a comment. And remember this, the moment I stopped paying for my brother's future was the moment I finally took back my own.